Let's start creating custom error pages in our Bookly application. Mistakes are unavoidable in our lives. When a user is working on a product, it is very likely that he may be stuck somewhere in response to his actions. Such kinds of situations can be frustrating for users if not handled properly within the product. It depends on the experience that the product is providing to its users. Often overlooked, a lazy error handling and ill-constructed error messages can fill users with frustration and make them stop using your application. A well-crafted error handling, on the other hand, can turn a moment of failure into a moment of delight. Flask comes with a handy abort function that aborts a request with an HTTP error code early. It will also provide a plain black and white error page for you with a basic description, but nothing fancy. Depending on the error code, it is less or more likely for the user to actually see such an error. So we will start with this abort functions implementation, then move on to the custom error handling. Abort can usually take two parameters, an HTTP status code and a description. If a status code is given, it will be looked up in the list of exceptions and will raise that exception. And if we passed a WSGI application like a response object, it will wrap it in a proxy WSGI exception and raise that out. Let's implement it in our Bookly application. You can see in this view, we are sending all books from the database to the home template. Let me delete all the books from the database. Now, in this case, we don't have any book. It means there's a 0 item in the result variable. So we will check that if the length of the result list is 0, set the result variable to none. Below that, we are rendering the template in case of books. But now, I will also return abort and we will pass 404 as status code and a description as no book found. And of course, we have to import the abort from Flask. If we run this application and log on to the home page of Bookly, you can see we got 404 not found error along with the description because now we don't have any book in our database. That's how we utilize the abort function to return some errors to the end user. Just think that if we want to design a proper error page and return that out in case of any page not found error in our entire application, what will we do? So here, the custom error handling comes into the place. Flask provides us the custom error handlers to customize this thing. An error handler is a function just like a view function, but it is called when an error happens and is passed that error. The error is most likely an HTTP exception, but in one case it can be a different error. A handler for internal server errors will be passed other exception instances as well if they are uncaught. An error handler is registered with the error handler decorator and the error code of the exception. Keep in mind that Flask will not set the error code for you, so make sure to also provide the HTTP status code when returning a response. Also keep in mind that if you add an error handler for 500 internal server error, Flask will not trigger it if it is running in debug mode. Now, we are going to implement a few errors in a customized way using Flask error handler in our Bookly application to display specific templates for different errors, like 404 for page not found error and 500 for internal server error. I opened my project in PyCharm. First, I will create another directory named errors inside the templates folder. Now, I will create an HTML file inside this directory named 404.html. We will extend the base template and then inside the content block, I will paste the HTML code for a simple 404 page not found message. In the same way, we will create another template named 500.html with a message specific to this error. Now, I will define error handlers for both of these errors in our app.py file. So I will say app.errorhandler and we have to pass the error like 404 in this case. Then we need to bind a function to that named not_found_error. It will take an argument for error. Let's call it E. Now, as a response, I will render 404.html template and also pass the status code. Now, in the same way, we will define an error handler for 500 internal server error. We just need to replace the error code and the template name. Great. Let's test these error handlers. Run this application and open it in the browser. Now, if I just type a random route to access it, it will return our 404.html template, as you can see here. To test other handler, we first need to turn off the debug mode, because in debug mode, the exception will be re-raised immediately and our custom handler never executes. So that's why we have to turn it off by simply removing the debug equal to true statement from the run function. Another thing we need in order to test this handler, of course, we must have a server error. So I will make an error in our home template. Let me duplicate this end for statement. Now, if we try to access our application, it will return our template for 500 internal server error. Great. By following the same process, we can generate customized error handlers for other error codes and make our Flask applications much more professional. We will continue this journey in the next module by implementing logging stuff for your Flask application. Thanks for watching.